What's up, guys? My name is Jerry, and today we're going to be talking about how the Boston Celtics could ruin the perfect offseason, and we're going to jump right into the video. Now, if the NBA season was to start today, I would say that the Boston Celtics have had the best offseason. We look at the season that they just came off of. They were able to make the NBA Finals, and they fell just 2 games short of bringing home an NBA championship. And usually when teams go through that, they'll bring back the same roster and they'll try to run it back. But this offseason, the Boston Celtics have been very busy, and they've been able to bring in some guys who's going to strengthen them and their weaknesses as a team. And what makes it so impressive about what the Boston Celtics have done, and why I think this is the driving factor in them having the best offseason, they were able to keep their best players. They were able to keep Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Robert Williams, Marcus Smart. They didn't have to come up off any of those guys. And in my opinion, they brought in 2 players who are going to make them better. They brought in Malcolm Brogdon, who they got via trade, and then they brought in Danilo Gallinari, who they brought in via free agency. Now, getting Malcolm Brogdon was definitely the highlight of the Boston Celtics offseason. They were able to get a player that averages 20 plus points per game, 5 plus rebounds, and 5 plus assists. They were able to acquire him without giving up any key rotational or core players. And what I like about Malcolm Brogdon is that he's going to help them in an area that they really struggled in. And this weakness of the Boston Celtics, I think, is shined the brightest in the NBA Finals, and that's their ability to create consistent offense in the half court. During the NBA Finals, there were so many times where the offense was so stagnant, and that stagnant offense would lead to turnovers, and we know in the NBA, turnovers lead to easy buckets. But bringing in Malcolm Brogdon, he's going to help a lot in that area because he is a true point guard, and I think he's going to fit so perfectly with the Boston Celtics because he is a player that can play without the basketball in his hands, and he can also play with the basketball in his hands. And I think both of these things are so important because he's playing around guys that also like to operate with the basketball in their hands. And I'm talking about Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and even sometimes Marcus Smart. But I love Malcolm Brogdon's skill set. He can score from all 3 levels. He has the ability to shoot the 3-point shot off the catch and off the dribble. He has the mid-range game, and he's a very crafty finisher around the rim. He can also orchestrate in the pick and roll. He's very dangerous as a scoring threat and as a passing threat. Has on-point lob passes, bounce passes, and he also hits the shooter right in their pocket. And he also serves on the defensive side of the ball. He's a bigger player, a very physical defender, so he's going to fit in right with the Boston Celtics. So I love this pickup by the C's. And we look at Danilo Gallinari. He's going to be adding some much needed firepower to the Boston Celtics second unit, and they're going to be getting a very versatile scorer. And I know Danilo Gallinari, he's getting up there in age, but his game is predicated more on skill, rather athleticism. So he's going to be able to score the basketball the same way he's been scoring it his entire career. Now, Danilo Gallinari is a respected 3-level scorer. He can knock down the 3-point shot off the catch. He can also knock it down off the dribble, and he's really good at attacking closeouts. He has a very tight handle on the ball. He has the pump fake 1 or 2 dribbles, and he can get to that mid-range pull-up, and he's also really good at finishing at the rim. And Danilo Gallinari stands at 6'10". I thought he was around 6'8", 6'7". At the most, I'll give him 6'9", but 6'10", that's a lot of length and a lot of size, and he knows how to use that to his advantage. He's also really solid out of the post. He has the post fade to his game. He has some pretty solid footwork down there, and if he has a smaller guy on him, he knows how to bang down low and uses his size to his advantage. So they're getting a pretty well-rounded scorer in Danilo Gallinari, and I think he's going to fit in well with the Boston Celtics offensive system because he can operate with and without the basketball. So we look at these two additions by the Boston Celtics, Malcolm Brogdon and Danilo Gallinari. I think these two guys make the Celtics a better team than what they were last season. And we look at the Boston Celtics reaching the NBA Finals, falling just 2 games short of an NBA championship. I think that right there gives them the perfect offseason. So we asked the question, how is the Boston Celtics perfect offseason potentially going to get ruined? And that's by attempting to trade for Kevin Durant. And just a disclaimer, I think Kevin Durant is one of the best players of all time. I don't think he's a bad basketball player at all. And this right here is just situational. And I think right now, when it comes to trading for him, for a team like the Boston Celtics, there are a lot of red flags. Number one is his health. Kevin Durant suffered that gruesome Achilles injury in 2019, and it's taken a huge toll on his physical health. There has been 3 NBA seasons since that year, and Kevin Durant has only suited up for a total of 86 games. So that's something to consider right there, the health of Kevin Durant. And secondly, I want to look at the age of Kevin Durant. Going into next season, the superstar is going to be 34 years old. Now I know that's not a crazy old age, but it seems like over these last 2 seasons, every other month Kevin Durant is dealing with a new injury, and there's just no telling at this point if Kevin Durant will ever have another season where he plays in 60 plus or 70 plus NBA games. And I'm not saying this to hate or bash Kevin Durant, but we're talking about a franchise in the Boston Celtics who are considering to trade away a huge part of their future in Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, on the other hand, is just 25 years of age, and we don't even know how good he's gonna be. Players don't usually hit their prime or their absolute peak until the age of 27 or 28. So I feel like if the Boston Celtics were to pull the trigger on this trade, they will be giving up a lot of youth and a lot of great basketball for a player who has been injury prone over these last 2 seasons. And lastly, this is what would scare me the most if I was the GM of the Boston Celtics when it comes to Kevin Durant. We look at the superstar since he signed with the Brooklyn Nets in 2019. They have given him whatever he wants. They gave him a max contract, even though he suffered one of the deadliest injuries in NBA history. They let him pick his duo partner in Kyrie Irving, and they also made sure that he signed off on every move that they made as a franchise. He even pushed for them to sign DeAndre Jordan. They gave him a lot of money, and he ended up being a bust for the Brooklyn Nets. And as soon as some adversity hits, as soon as something happens that KD doesn't like, he decides to pack his bag, quits on the franchise, and he gives them a crazy ultimatum. In a meeting with the owner of the Brooklyn Nets, Kevin Durant says the only way that he stays a member of the team is if Sean Marks and Steve Nash no longer works for the franchise. He said as long as those 2 guys are there, he would like to be traded. And this is why I said if I was the GM or the owner of the Boston Celtics, I would be too afraid to go anywhere near Kevin Durant. I feel like the mental state that he is in right now is way too volatile, because let's say that this trade does go through, and let's say the Celtics put together a deal of guys like Jaylen Brown. The Brooklyn Nets also said they wanted rotational pieces, so maybe let's just say Marcus Smart, for instance, and then they also want some draft compensation. So let's say they package that for the Nets and they send over Kevin Durant, and let's say some adversity hits or something happens that KD doesn't like. Who's to say that he just won't get up and demand another trade or quit on the franchise? And I think what the Boston Celtics have right now is special because they overcame their own adversity hump last season. And once they were able to do that, they were playing basketball at an all-time high. And more importantly, their morale was at an all-time high. It seemed like they were really enjoying playing the game of basketball with each other. But with the trade accusations and the rumors of offering Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant, that doesn't do anything but bring that morale back down to before they overcame that adversity hump. Because if that deal doesn't fall through, now Jaylen Brown knows that the franchise tried to trade him away. But these are my thoughts on the situation. I like the Boston Celtics how they are right now. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.